We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen.
What is up, YouTube? I'm your friendly neighborhood Endman64, bringing you the next episode of MLB Power Pros. In the last episode, we had a pretty big showdown with the Chicago White Sox, who somehow beat Jamie Wright, but then couldn't beat Jack. So make that make sense. They couldn't beat the guy who's leading the league in... They beat the guy who's leading the league in ERA, but they couldn't beat the guy who has an ERA of 8. Make it make sense. I mean, I'm the one who's viewing him, so maybe that has something to do with it. Our bullpen, as you can see, is hot shit. So, as you can see, I made a move. We acquired Joel Peralta from the Kansas City Royals in exchange for our catcher, Shiraishi, or whatever his name is. We weren't really using him. We have Brian Schneider, and we have a couple of other catching options, so I wasn't too worried about giving up on a catcher. But we still have more pieces I would like to acquire to make the team a little bit stronger. In fact, I am kind of contemplating trading Aguilar so I can put I put myself in the lineup, which would be nice. I just got to find a team that's willing to take him. He's not hitting well. And if I could have, or maybe Ryan Church, I don't know. If I could platoon Mike with one of these two, then I think we'll be in good hands. So we'll just have to wait and see. More importantly, however, is we have a pretty big showdown today with our division rivals and the team currently leading the division by 1 game, the LA Angels. Seattle seems to have run into a rough patch. We'll check the standings. As you can see, they're starting to fall a bit farther behind. But it seems that it's going to be a contest between us and the Angels to see which of us is going to win the division. And the worst part is that the Indians and Twins are going to make this especially hard on us because we're trying to get a wild card if we can't get the division. Which, again, kind of problematic. But we cannot control that aspect of the game just yet, but what we can control is today's game. I am going to let Brian Schneider sit this one out, and we'll let our young catcher Berg get a game in today. His motivation's really high too, so I'd rather that. Aguilar, I'm going to let him have a day off today, and we're going to use Churchy again. Russell got muscled, didn't really hit much. But hey, no big deal. Hopefully he can continue hitting for us. Right now we got this game is pretty much going to be a big big factor in deciding who wins the AL West this year. I meing, our team didn't exist in the actual AL West, and the Angels did win it in 2007.
Between the Los Angeles Angels and
Who's counting? Who's
counting? I'm Jack Merluzzi, and I'll be your commentator today.
It does let me talk about the Angels, though. We're probably one of the most frustrating teams for a baseball fan to have to watch. And I guess you can figure it starts with that name. That name is hot garbage.
Playing left field,
the Angels, for the longest time, since they've almost always played consistently in Anaheim, have been second fiddle to the Dodgers. But for the longest time, the Angels didn't actually look like they cared. They kind of just cruised with it. So they were the other Southern California team. So you already had the Dodgers and the Padres, but you had the Angels who were in the American League, and you're like, oh, well, maybe they could do something nice.
Here we go for the first pitch.
The Angels are very similar to the Mets in that they have a very troubled history.
Las Vegas might just
and it pretty much began immediately because the team was not good until, like,
he put that first pitch right in there.
The owner of the team, who's actually Gene Autry, the famous country music singer, decided he was going to start spending money on the team. And since Gene Autry was filthy stinking rich, he could pretty much sign whoever he wanted. And that ended with the Angels signing a bunch of big, oh my god, that's gone. Ryan Church, baby. A 2-run shot off of Jared Weaver. I wonder if Ryan Church ever did take Jared Weaver. I doubt it. I don't think they played each other
in top
enough.
form as a batter this season. Here we go with the first pitch.
But the Angels were a team that pretty much
Matthews goes back. There's a hit. He throws to second.
they signed a bunch of big players, so they had guys like Reggie Jackson, Fred Lynn, like Hall of Fame or sort of Hall of Fame guys near the end of their career, and they did do well, but they always had like a haunting thing around them. Like they were like a very cursed team. Their first playoff was in 1979, and they just didn't stand a chance against the Orioles, who were really good that year. But 1982, they had a 2-0 lead and choked that away to Milwaukee in the playoffs, and then they had a 3-1 lead over the Red Sox in 1986, where I could have had my dream World Series of the Mets and Angels World Series ultimately fell apart because the Red Sox were able to bounce back and the Angels kind of imploded. And from that point on, the Angels were basically mired in mediocrity. Gene Autry was getting very up there in age, so the Angels basically like passed around through a bunch of through the Autry family, and then were like just in general mediocre, trying to find their identity. And then out of nowhere, the Walt Disney Company, yes, Disney, purchased them, and they were going to be a big part of the Disney decade, if you will, which was supposed to be, for those of you who don't know, if you're subscribed to Defunct Land, you can learn more about it. It was supposed to be like a run where Disney pretty much did what they're doing now in terms of like owning everything, but like doing it with the fun Disney style. You know? It wasn't just going to be the corporate mega monster that they are now.
Las Vegas are now up to bat.
But they owned the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. They had the Angels of Anaheim. They obviously had Disneyland in Anaheim, so it only made sense for them to do that. The Angels, I mean, Disney with the Angels was pretty normal. But the fans weren't too pleased because well, the Angels were pretty mediocre. But I think all that changed in 2002 when, by some stroke of randomness, or the universe just throwing the franchise a freebie, the Angels went from being an also-ran to suddenly being one of the top dogs in the American League. And as I've mentioned in my review of the movie Angels in the Outfield on my blog and a few other things, the Angels went on an absolutely magical run in 2002. Where they won their first playoff series, then won another, and then stunned the San Francisco Giants by beating them in the World Series.
That's the final out.
And that was the first, and to this day, only championship the Angels have won.
Las Vegas 2, the Angels 0.
Because of how much money Disney poured into the franchise to make it a winner, they did not really get to benefit much from the victory. In fact, Disney was hemorrhaging money with the franchise, and not to mention hemorrhaging money elsewhere because Michael Eisner's little strategy failed miserably.
Swings and misses. He's gone.
So the Angels were sold to Artie Moreno, and he's considered by many one of the most infamous owners in baseball because of a few things, but it didn't really start out that way. When Artie Moreno bought the club in 2003, they had sort of a World Series hangover, so they weren't as good. But
that's a strike.
When the Angels when Artie Moreno first bought the club in his first offseason, he went out and got some pretty big players. He got Bartolo Colon to be the ace of the staff. Got Vladimir Guerrero to be a heart of the lineup. They got Jose Guillen to shore up the defense for the team. And the Angels, for the most part, responded. From 2004 to 2009, if you don't count if you just count the regular season, the Angels were probably the best well-oiled franchise in the league, unless you count like the Red Sox. Church, do it again. Oh my God, I was about to say, if Brian Church hit another home run, I would just go bananas.
Church gets a base hit. Church hits back-to-back base hits. Mike Piazza has been in top form as a batter
but there were issues with Moreno. And since then, the Astros have only become worse.
Gets a base hit to center field.
For one thing, Artie Moreno is known as a guy who does not want to go over the luxury tax. Now, what the luxury tax is unlike in the other sports, there's no salary cap in baseball, which means teams can, or floor for that matter, so teams can spend as much or as little as they want on their team. And there will be no repercussions. Like, no serious repercussions. Like, you're not going to take a cap hit, you won't lose draft picks or something like that. However, the luxury tax is if your team is over the threshold, you will pay extra money to the teams that can't afford to be over the threshold.
Count 0-1.
Artie Moreno is in one of the biggest markets in baseball because he insisted that the club that plays in Anaheim call themselves Los Angeles, which is why that name of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim is weird, but we'll live with it. Now they're just known as the LA Angels.
Foul.
But on top of that, that means the Angels are pretty hamstrung when it comes to getting free agents.
He got it. 2 away.
But in the 2000s, no one really had an issue with that because the Angels also had an extremely good farm system. Like, they were churning out stars in the league for like years.
He drives it to the opposite
You'd get guys who would be role players. You'd get guys who would become stars. Both pitching, offense, defense, you name it, they could pretty much turn out a player who could help them. So there really was no major issues with the Angels when it came to that.
There's the third out.
It wasn't until Artie Moreno got these big cojones, if you will,
Las Vegas 3,
and decided he was the reason the Angels were such a good franchise.
Here we go for the
Because you get after 2002 and the 2003 season, and he bought them. The Angels were in the playoffs every single year except 2006, which was a year Oakland was just so damn good for them. Was so damn good. Oh wow! My light hitting shortstop hit a home run. All right, we're doing good. We are cruising here. I'll take it. I will. We can use a nice win here.
First pitch is struck for
that's under that one. But the Angels sort of, well, Artie Moreno sort of bit the hand that fed, if you will. I mean, I know he was the owner, so he could probably do whatever he wanted, but he started to make some very questionable decisions. He started to make some pretty sloppy trades, forcing his GMs to make sloppy trades. He gutted most of the farm system and the scouting department.
Here we go for the
it was not a good thing. So the Angels went from being probably the most model franchise in the game to being the joke of baseball that they are now.
Extend their lead to 6.
Which is a shame because the Angels were consistently good. Even into the early 2010s, they were consistently good.
Here we go, the first pitch.
It was just proof that other teams were learning lessons that the Angels didn't want to learn. They were spending a little extra. They were making smarter moves.
We enter the bottom of the 4th inning. Las Vegas 6, the Angels 0.
And it ended up ultimately biting the Angels because now they've let so many great players flop and flounder around on the roster that the Angels almost have like no expectations around them. Which in the 2000s was almost an impossible thing to think of because they were just so good for so long. And because Artie Moreno likes to get the big blue chip free agents, so he'll sign a guy like Albert Pujols or Josh Hamilton or Anthony Rendon to a contract they either deserve or don't deserve.
He got it. That's the final out. No runs.
But because of his unwillingness to spend above the luxury tax threshold, the Angels usually have to then dumpster dive for the rest of their team. And you're not going to win by dumpster diving for most of your pitching staff. So the argument would be, well, why don't we just start developing pitchers more? Problem is, they haven't been developing them well because their coaching is poor, thanks to Artie Moreno just replacing guys who knew what they were doing with people who just tell him what he wants to hear. And that's pretty much the run of the Angels here, because they went from being one of the best franchises to talk about, even if they didn't win in that run from 2004 to 2014. Even though they didn't win, they were just such a fun team to watch that now they're just wasting generational talents left and right. If it wasn't Vlad Guerrero that didn't get to win, then it was Pujols who didn't get to win. Then it was Mike Trout is going to be the next, is going to be Major League Baseball's equivalent to like Russell Westbrook or something, or Josh Allen for like NFL, where he's going to be such a good player that's never going to win. And now he's in decline because now he can't field anymore. He's constantly hurt. He's losing speed. So now the Angels are in a position where they're paying Mike Trout a ridiculous amount of money, still paying Anthony Rendon a ridiculous amount of money in a move that might be the worst contract worst free agent contract in MLB history.
Off the head of the bat.
Congratulations, Omar Minaya. Your Jason Bay contract is off the hook.
Next at bat, Mike Napoli. He popped up to the infield his first time up.
But it sucks because I love the Angels. They should be better than they are.
It's a strike.
But the owner refuses to make the necessary changes, and now many Angel fans just want them gone. They would rather Disney own the club or somebody else just to fix things, because they are one of baseball's most frustrating franchises when there's no reason for them to be. Imagine if this team was what they were in the 2000s now.
Rivera goes back.
You would have one of the most competitive AL Wests out there. You'd have the Mariners who were good, the Rangers who were supposed to be good, the Astros who may be at the last licks but are still pretty good.
Enox is retired on an infield grounder.
You would have
in this game. Here we go for the first pitch.
An AL West that you could legitimately argue all 5 teams should be competitive. But you don't. Now everyone knows the Angels are gonna. They need to either completely commit to building up the farm, or they need to start spending money, because this is not a sustainable thing for them. And what sucks more is the fact that during that run where the Angels were the talk of baseball, they had such a deep, respectable farm system and all that. The Dodgers really became the also-ran of Southern California. I mean, the Padres were also pretty mediocre, but the Dodgers really were not a respectable franchise at that point. They had a bad ownership situation. They bet all of their eggs on Manny Ramirez, who was a steroid abuser.
Pulled inside.
The club consistently underperformed, and the Angels were able to take LA by storm. Or should have been able to take LA by storm. Little did they know, LA is almost entirely Dodger fans. So,
fly ball to left center field.
What originally should not have been a big deal, the Dodgers then go get their new ownership, and they've been spending money left and right. They're now the most dominant team in baseball. And what do the Mets have to show for it? I'm so used to ragging on the Mets, but it's like, what do the Angels have to show for it?
Whiteman got a home run in his last at-bat. Hit the first pitch.
They have Mike Trout under contract, but their farm system, no one really talks about it. They're not signing free agents. They're not signing like top players. They're not looking particularly hot. They've made a couple of pretty wondrous trades.
Las Vegas could stretch their lead here.
You're just looking at a team that has no direction. They can fix it, but it's gonna take some acceptance from the owner that the club needs to change direction. But he doesn't seem keen to change it because the Angels are extremely popular in LA or in Anaheim. They have a very passionate and loyal fan base, which consistently keeps coming to games, which means Artie Moreno keeps making money.
There's the third out.
This isn't like a Wilpon situation like it was for the Mets, where once all of that stuff happened and the Wilpon stopped spending money, Mets fans stopped coming to games.
We are going to face the number 4, 5, and 6 batters this inning. Garrett Anderson got a single.
They're a very hot commodity, and that's gone. Damn.
The Angels are finally coming out swinging.
All right, I was expecting the Angels to strike back at some point, but
here we go, the first pitch. There's the first pitch, and it's hit. Foul.
But no, like, the Angels really should be better than they are.
To the right.
But if the owner doesn't see an issue,
infield
there's nothing's going to get done. Nothing is going to change.
One away.
He did actually contemplate selling the team a couple of years back, and I was kind of hopeful that they'd actually give it to a guy who would want to build a winner or something. But then he decided, no, I'm sorry.
Swing and a miss. Count 0-1.
And that's not even, and that's just the monetary side of the game. That's not even talking about the controversies that he's gotten into.
One hit, no errors. At the end of the
I mean, you've got an owner who flipping pays so cheap, pays minor league players so cheaply that they have to like cut back on meals just to be able to pay their rent. You've got a guy who tries to constantly find excuses to not pay players if they're injured. You've got a guy whose franchise was involved in the death of a great young starting pitcher named Tyler Skaggs, where he ended up getting addicted to dangerous drugs and OD'd.
Dribbler off the bat.
It sucks.
He steps on the first base bag.
And this isn't just a man who just doesn't want to spend money. It's a guy who you could argue is a pretty big piece of shit.
Foul ball.
All things considered.
Fly to shallow center field.
I'm not going to test Matthews.
He caught it.
We have a big enough lead anyway, but I'm not going to test it.
Las Vegas could stretch their lead.
It's a disappointing thing because, like I said, the Angels can be so much better than they are, but they're stuck in a lose-lose situation.
Hard swing to right field.
Hopefully, like I said, Artie Moreno either sells the team or reverses his trajectory because, as of this moment,
the Angels,
it ain't looking good for the Angels. Not looking good for the Angels in this game either. But
count 0-1.
Who am I to complain?
He makes contact. Great catch!
I don't know why West had to go out and get that.
Next up, Sean Figgins.
Sure.
He's set to deliver the first
I don't like that the game just arbitrarily decides who's going to field.
Foul ball. This one goes.
Maybe that's why Paul Konerko went out into the outfield to grab that one in the White Sox game.
One go by. It's a ball.
Yes, that we played yesterday. I don't know.
Strike.
All right.
He makes contact. Foul ball. Throw to first.
Alley-oop.
Out. 2 away. Figgins is retired.
One more out from my boy JD.
Here we go for the first pitch. Strike.
Who was always the most vocally passionate Angels fan I knew.
It's a wicked shot straight into the stands.
He was always the guy that was sitting there. He was the one who actually told me the Angels will not win anything with Artie Moreno as
comes in. That's the final out.
And remember, this is before a lot of the stuff that I mentioned happened.
At the end of the 8th inning,
this was
Las Vegas.
The last time we spoke about it. It was probably a few months before he passed.
And now we are here in the 9th inning.
And he was
hit already in this game.
Even then, he was like, "Yeah, this team's not going to win anything with Artie Moreno at the helm. He is just." He's too meddlesome of an owner. He thinks he's better than he actually is, but he doesn't spend the money.
It's a strike.
It's a very bad situation.
Straight
But
over
he was,
center field.
I think he was more passionate about the Angels than I was about the Mets. Or I am about the Mets.
8-1. Las Vegas extend their lead to
I'm not saying a lot because I am very passionate about the
around
Mets.
the bases.
Notice how I'm using them in MLB Power Pros. Again, they're one of the teams that I'm considering using for the 08 game,
There's the
but we'll
first
just have to wait and see
struck to the opposite field. He caught it.
how the rest of this goes. Because MLB 08, MLB Power Pros 08 is going to be one of
He belts one off the first
those really lengthy LPs.
There's the third out.
Because
1 run, 1 hit, no errors. Las Vegas.
we've
8,
got
the Angels 1.
We've got an extra mode in that game, and then of course I got the finale. Then
He just wants to get on base in this situation. Foul. He pulled that one well.
Wait, do I still have JD on the mound? I do. All right, so let's see if we can get one more out.
Swings and misses.
There you
He's
go.
gone. Vladimir Guerrero has been in top form as a batter this season.
So I think he's a little gassed, so
hitting streak is down the plate.
You know, we'll let Joel Peralta make his debut.
Timeout.
I needed a good reliever, and hopefully Peralta will be
the
that
pitcher
for
for the team
us.
to take them out in this game.
He's having a good year for Kansas City. Look at that! Look at that! That ERA is beautiful.
It's a
So
strike.
if we can just
He pulled that one well.
like
Whiteman got that one.
have one or two good bullpen
We are now
guys,
down to the final
I think
round
we'll
for
be
this
able to
game.
jump
Garrett
past the
Anderson got a home run in his last at bat.
jump past the
Las
Angels
Vegas
for
are
good
one out
and
away
win the
from winning
division.
consecutive games. Swings
But it
and
also
misses.
determines
He's
on how
gone.
we play the games
Anderson
that I'm not
strikes out.
playing, because I'm not playing every single one
And
of these
that
games.
wraps it up. Las Vegas, that's 3 wins in a row.
All right, so we bounced back. We got 3 wins in a row, and I think with this we jump back into first place. I don't think we're a game up. I think we're tied for first with the Angels, but you know what? I can live with this. That was my boy Churchy. Churchy went deep twice, which is, in my opinion, was like one of the best aspects of the game. My boy Churchy.
Is Weaver, his 3rd loss this season.
All right, JD got another win, which I think puts him at 5-0. Wow. Anderson got a home run. Enoch's got a home run. Church got 2. Whiteman got 2, and West got 1. So you see, it's just the cavernous ballpark we live in. That's just why we're not a power hitting team. Hell, Ryan Church literally is like, he might actually start some games for us going down the line. Because Aguilar is not hitting. I'm actually tempted to just put Ryan Church in the middle of the lineup. Alright, I think this is going to be the last game I record today. It's getting a little on the late side. It's almost 8:30. Next up is our Friday game opener in Seattle. So we are going to play our other division rivals in the Mariners as our next game. Then we'll do the draft today. We gotta make sure we have the draft. That is the important part. I want to show you guys how the draft works. Then I think we will have a home game against Kansas City. Go on the road to San Francisco. Save Texas for a later day, and we'll go to Cleveland and play Cleveland. I don't know if we're gonna do the All-Star game or not. But then after that, I'm feeling we'll do a home game against the Angels. Wow, we got back-to-back series against Seattle. Who the hell made this schedule? We'll do another game. We'll do a home game against the Mariners, probably the deadline day, so we can see if we can make any trades. We'll do a game against the Tigers, a game against the Blue Jays, away from home. Well, we go to Chicago twice? Well, no wonder we're not playing the Red Sox. So dumb. And then in September, depending on how we're doing, we'll see how we can do, how many games we have to show for that. We'll just see. But I think that's enough for now. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm your friendly neighborhood Endman64. Join me next time as we go to Seattle to have a showdown with our other big division rival, the Seattle Mariners, who are 3 games back, but still definitely in a playoff chase because the AL West is looking pretty good, except for the poor Sea Dogs. Oh well. Until we meet again, my lovelies, sayonara.